Well, joining us now to look at the importance of this visit and this relationship, Ambassador Navdeep Suri. We are also joined by Dr. Amar Badr. He's the Regional Managing Director for the Middle East for Abercrombie and Kent. Thank you very much for being with us. And also Mr. Omar Bassiouni, the founding partner and head of corporate M&A at Matuk Bassiouni and Henawi. Thank you all. Ambassador Suri, let me come to you first. Why is Egypt of strategic import to India?
Egypt is a pivotal country in the Middle East. It is the largest Arab country with a population of 110 million people. It is blessed by a geography that enables it to straddle Asia and Africa, and it's poised right next to Europe. It has a diplomatic footprint that has always punched above its weight. For us at this point of time, it is both a market and a potential partner in an increasingly multipolar world where each country is looking for a strong partner in a different geography. I saw your clip about Indian soft power. That's something that we've really experienced in Egypt during my stint as ambassador there. The kind of affection that the average Egyptian has for India is really something quite unprecedented. It's a little unfortunate, Vishnu, that from the heyday of Nehru and Nasser that everybody used to speak about and the non-aligned movement, we kind of drifted apart for several decades for a variety of reasons. So it's really good to see after almost 40 years of drift, there's this concerted effort to bring the two countries together. First, President Sisi as the chief guest on Republic Day, now the Prime Minister coming, then President Sisi coming back for the G20 summit, India making the overture of making sure that Egypt is one of the three countries that we've invited as our special guests. So I think there are a lot of things going right, and a lot of credit to the two governments for renewing the energy into the relationship.
Yeah. Dr. Badr, the economic relationship has a lot of potential as well. The Suez Canal Economic Zone, which Egypt is looking to develop in a very, very big way. India could be an important partner in that. What is the potential there?
I think the potential is really enormous. And first of all, let me say thank you very much for focusing on the importance of Egypt-India relation, which I truly believe is a strategic relationship. I think Egypt-India have always had somewhat either cordial or very warm or close or good relationship. I haven't heard of any change to that in the past, I would say, century, and that goes to shows the similarity between the two countries, and many people really talk about a lot of similarities in terms of even sharing the same kind of poverty, sharing the same kind of dreams, and sharing a lot in common. I think economically we could see a much stronger relationship in the next few years. I think politics of that is important. Egypt is a growing country. When we first started this big collaboration from the days of Nasser and Nehru, I believe Egypt and India together were able to manufacture a military aircraft where Egypt was doing the engine and India was doing the rest.
Yes.
Obviously, Egypt then kind of went into different directions from the days of the 50s and the 60s, and India went into also different direction. India is obviously a world tiger, a world elephant, and the economic power and stability. Egypt is a developing country and trying to develop further. There is a strong intention, whether governmentally or publicly, for Egypt to grow and to help its economy to stand stronger. I think this relationship, without a doubt, is one that is well trusted, whether publicly or governmentally, and it's one that many people view with a lot of admiration. I was talking earlier today to a very senior politician in the Gulf,
Yep.
and I told him about our interview, and this man said to me, It's really wonderful. Prime Minister Modi is a global figure. You should only see how he was received in the U.S. Congress to see the impact that India does. Mm-hmm. We are thrilled to see that Egypt-India relation become stronger and become closer. I would say that beside the economics, we should see, in my opinion, a better people-to-people relationship between Indian and Egyptian. We should see a stronger cultural exchange from both sides. I was pleased to hear that the Prime Minister was keen to meet famous Egyptian artists and culture pop. That shows me that obviously you guys go through the depth of that relationship, but I think really that people-to-people aspect in the India-Egypt relationship is very vital, and that would supplement whatever we're doing economically, because again, India has a trusted record in the Egyptian mind, and doing business in Egypt sometimes could be conflicted with that element of trust, and that element.
You know, Dr. Badr, I'll just come in over there. That fighter aircraft that Egypt and India were co-developing was called the Helwan in Egypt. It ultimately became the HF-24 Marut in India, that which served for several decades. Omar Basiri,
I know that's a long history. Yeah,
it is. And it is also interesting that just in the last couple of months, we've had the Indian Air Force staged via Egypt. Your Air Force operates French Rafale fighters. Our Air Force operates French Rafale fighters as well. It's a new addition to both forces. So there is that military relationship which is also evolving. It's very interesting. It's absolutely fascinating. Omar Basiri, let's stick to the theme of that military relationship, because the Prime Minister will also be visiting a World War II memorial. Now, I've personally been to El Alamein near Alexandria, and I mean, it's stunning and we often forget, and I've done a documentary from there, that thousands of Indians, and we were Indians then, but not part of the nation of India. We were fighting for the British at that stage, but thousands of Indians were killed in your country, fighting ultimately against the greatest evil which we all knew, Nazism. And that is a link that we should never forget.
Absolutely, Vishnu, and thank you very much for hosting us. So, look, Egypt and India, we're talking about the two of the oldest civilizations in the world. You know, aside Saad Zaghloul and Nehru, you know, the relationship goes back to the pharaonic era for thousands of years. So definitely the depths in the Egyptian-Indian relationship and the historical synergies and the demographical synergies have been there all along. Definitely Saad Zaghloul and Nehru and Gandhi shared common aspirations for independence. And as you were saying, you know, a lot of so Egyptian and Indian soldiers died in that Second World War, fighting, not for our own national countries, but during, for the UK, as we were both, I think, suffered colonialism at that point. But definitely, there is so many ties historically, demographically, culturally. I come from a generation that didn't have Netflix. We used to wait every Friday night to watch Amitabh Bachchan's movie. Right. So, this is something that's been entrenched in Egyptians for many, and therefore, as Amr and His Excellency Ambassador Surya were saying, the depths of cultural, historical, demographical relationship between Egypt and India needs maybe, hours and hours to talk about. But definitely, the ties are there. We're looking at the future. We're looking at bilateral trade, increasing the bilateral trade from 7.2 billion to hopefully exceeding a double-digit billion numbers in the short-term future. Indian investments have reached $3.2 billion, spearheaded by companies like the Sanmar Group, Asian Paints, and others. So definitely, there's so much to be looked at, and and the economic success that India has achieved under the Prime Minister Modi is something that we Egyptians are really looking at. It's no secret Egypt's economy has been facing some headwinds because of COVID, the impacts on tourism, the Russian-Ukrainian conflict, and the implication on the price of wheat and commodities. And now India becoming a strategic partner for Egypt in terms of wheat is something that, that is a new, I would say, milestone in that evolving relationship, which, as His Excellency Amr said, is something that we Egyptians feel very close at heart.
Ambassador Suri, this footage that we are playing out is footage which has been reaching us just a few minutes back. It's all taking place now, roundtable level talks between the Egyptian Prime Minister and our Prime Minister, several other leaders. So this is all happening as we're having this discussion. Ambassador, shall we talk a little bit about the Suez Canal Economic Zone? How is that an area of great potential for India in terms of our business investments?
Well, Vishnu, I hope as we see those visuals, that's one of the topics of conversation between the two prime ministers that's taking place now. I had the opportunity to meet Dr. Waleed Kamaluddin, the chairman of the Suez Canal Economic Zone, in Delhi last week. He was here to drum up support from Indian industry for the Suez Canal Economic Zone. Look, I think that the zone has immense potential for three reasons from an Indian perspective. One is, as I said, location. That the way it straddles Asia and Africa, the way the 6 ports in the zone give you an easy logistical connect to markets in Europe, in Africa, in the Gulf, and so on. Linked to that is the web of free trade agreements that Egypt has very smartly struck with each neighborhood zone. So whether it's the Europeans, whether it's the Gulf countries, the Arab world, or Africa, Egypt has these free trade agreements. And the third is that, labor costs in Egypt are still pretty competitive. So I would argue that just as we speak of a make in India, I think if we want to have a program of made by India for the world, then that kind of an export-driven program has immense connectivity with the Suez Canal Economic Zone. I think I would strongly encourage Indian industry to take a good hard look at the incentives that are being offered by the Egyptians to come to the zone. I would also look at the Chinese, because they have already taken a 7.3 square kilometer tract of land. And they're building clusters of Chinese industries for the very same reasons. And I don't think we again want to be in a position of saying, oh my God, the Chinese have taken it, were we sleeping, what were we up to? So this is something that our government and our industry need to work in sync. And to make sure that at least the message travels across Indian industry, that this is a huge opportunity for us.
In fact, Dr. Badr, out of 4.8 million barrels per day of crude oil that goes through the Suez, that is shipped and transported through the canal, 500,000 barrels per day of crude is shipped to India. So that's an economic linkage which can never go away. I mean, it helps sustain our economy. Our requirements are absolutely huge. Dr. Badr, what are some of the other areas that you see Indian industry engaging with Egypt in?
Well, I think strongly that artificial intelligence or industrial technology is an area where India has excelled globally. I think Egypt is coming into that arena and could learn a lot from the practice and could actually seek to do joint projects with India, because of the similarity and because of the excellent track record you guys have and the availability also of manpower and location we have in Egypt. I think the industrial sector at large is one that probably also worth looking at. Companies like TCI and others have done well in Egypt, and I believe there is a room for more Indian companies to invest in the industrial sector in Egypt. Egypt clearly at the moment, obviously, is looking at growing its industrial capability as a way to basically help grow the economy. I think tourism is an important area. It's one that we've tried, but I don't think the efforts were, I would say, sincere or strong enough to conclude for a stronger relationship. I remember the days when I came to India and we launched a whole campaign to come to Egypt with your famous superstar Amitabh Bachchan, and there was some efforts to help grow that industry. I think there is definitely need for more Egyptians to come to India and learn about the country and benefit from the many things that it has to offer. I think also there could be collaboration on some agriculture projects. I think there is definitely an area there. But much of that, in my opinion, is really about, and I hope we use this particular visit and the last visit made by our president very recently to also put a little bit of focus on that people-to-people culture stronger exchange, because, I think both our nations, they are more sincere, they're more emotional, and having that awareness, having that people-to-people aspect will certainly put India on a stronger record in the minds of many of the Egyptians that are trying to do business or trying to develop business to think, hey, the answer would be going to India. So I know maybe that is not an economic talk.
No, I think that's a very important point, sir. I think that really is at the heart of the relationship. Omar Basuni, another huge concern for India, of course, is our fight against terrorism. We faced terrorism for so many decades, and Egypt has faced the worst of terrorism and in different phases yourself. Is the fight against international terror a huge, or it is obviously a concern for any country, but do you believe that cooperation in this front is a diplomatic and important link?
Absolutely, Vishnu. I think both India and Egypt have faced tremendous waves and repercussions of terrorism across the last 20, 30 years. We're both familiar with the disasters, with the darkness of terrorism. It is something that President Sisi and Prime Minister Modi put on the top of their priorities. And when the President Sisi met Prime Minister Modi in India during his last visit, that was one of the main topics. Definitely, terrorism and global terrorism is an issue that both countries face. And today, I think it's countries that did not suffer that are seeing today the implication of what we as Egyptians or what you as Indians were saying, the implication of terrorism. There has to be a global effort. People have to act in concert. We cannot have individual efforts. Against a global threat, you need a global reaction. And I think both Egypt and India definitely have suffered that and are both facing that courageously, and hopefully, will be able to prevail over that. And again, I echo what His Excellency Ambassador Suri and Amr said. There is so much to be done. There is so much to be done in terms, the warmth is there, the history is there, and I think the trade balance, as good as it is, there is so much to be improved. I think today Egypt joining BRICS and the new development bank is a big milestone. I think India, being a founding part, has really encouraged Egyptians to join it. I think the discussion of a new trade line and a new part of trade agreement to promote exports and imports between Egypt and India and elevate the pressure on the U.S. foreign currency that Egypt has been going through is another milestone. So definitely a lot to be done. And I would say the sky is the limit in terms of cooperation and taking that relationship to a whole new level.
Well, gentlemen, it is an important visit. Let's see what the final outcomes are. There will be a joint statement at some stage tomorrow. I'd like to thank you all very much for being with us. Thank you very much indeed.